Welcome back to Midnight and Murder, where stories of mystery and intrigue lull you gently into the arms of sleep. Tonight we have 13 short stories. Let's go. Story 1. The Vanishing Heiress. On a crisp autumn evening in 1972, the small town of Willow Creek was rocked by the disappearance of Eleanor Whitmore, the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in the region. Eleanor had been attending a charity gala at her family's sprawling estate when she vanished without a trace. The gala itself was an extravagant affair. Glittering chandeliers hung from high ceilings. Guests dressed in their finest attire mingled over champagne, and the sound of live music filled the air. By all accounts, it was a night like any other for the Whitmores, who were accustomed to hosting such events. But as midnight approached, something went terribly wrong. Witnesses reported seeing Eleanor leave the ballroom around midnight, heading toward the gardens outside. Several people recalled exchanging pleasantries with her earlier in the evening, noting how radiant she looked despite appearing slightly distracted. No one thought much of her departure. After all, it wasn't unusual for guests to step out for fresh air during these lengthy gatherings. However, when Eleanor failed to return within an hour, concern began to spread. Her car remained parked outside, untouched, and her coat still hung neatly on its rack inside the mansion. It was as if she had simply evaporated into thin air. Detectives arrived within hours, combing through every inch of the estate. They searched the gardens, the stables, even the nearby woods, but found no signs of struggle. No broken windows, no bloodstains, nothing out of place. Inside the house, investigators meticulously examined each room, looking for clues that might explain what happened. Yet everything seemed perfectly normal, almost eerily so. Even the security footage from the cameras installed throughout the property revealed nothing unusual. There were glimpses of Eleanor moving gracefully through the halls, but the tapes abruptly cut off just before she reached the garden doors. Over the next few weeks, investigators interviewed everyone from staff members to distant acquaintances, yet no leads emerged. Rumors swirled about secret lovers, hidden debts, and even supernatural forces tied to the old mansion's history. Some whispered about a curse placed on the Whitmore family generations ago, though no one could provide concrete evidence to support such claims. Others speculated that Eleanor might have orchestrated her own disappearance, perhaps fleeing the pressures of her privileged life. But why would she do so without taking anything with her? Why leave behind not only her coat, but also her purse, keys, and phone? As months turned into years, the case grew colder. The public moved on, though whispers of Eleanor's fate lingered in hushed conversations. Then in 2018, nearly 5 decades after her disappearance, an anonymous tip led police to a dusty attic in another state where they discovered a box containing letters written by Eleanor herself. In them, she described feeling trapped by her family's expectations and hinted at plans to escape. She wrote poignantly about longing for freedom, expressing frustration with the rigid social structures that dictated her every move. While this revelation didn't solve the mystery entirely, it painted a poignant picture of a young woman yearning for autonomy and perhaps finding it in ways no one could have imagined. To this day, Eleanor Whitmore's disappearance remains unsolved, leaving behind more questions than answers. Was she abducted, or did she choose to disappear? Did she find the freedom she so desperately sought, or did her quest end in tragedy? These mysteries continue to haunt those who remember her, ensuring that the legacy of the vanishing heiress endures long after the last echoes of that fateful gala faded away. Story 2, The Midnight Gardener. In the sleepy village of Ashwood, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, residents often spoke of strange occurrences in the local cemetery. For generations, tales circulated about ghostly apparitions wandering among the tombstones late at night. Some claimed to hear soft footsteps crunching against gravel paths, while others swore they saw shadowy figures tending to graves under the pale glow of the moonlight. Most dismissed these stories as mere superstition, whispers born of fear and imagination. But everything changed one fateful morning when groundskeeper Harold Finch stumbled upon something peculiar. Harold had worked at Ashwood Cemetery for over 20 years, maintaining its neat rows of headstones and manicured lawns. He prided himself on keeping the grounds immaculate, ensuring that visitors always felt welcomed and comforted. So when he noticed rows of freshly planted flowers adorning several neglected graves, His first reaction was confusion. Who would take the time to beautify graves that had clearly been forgotten by everyone else? More importantly, why would they do so in secret, under cover of darkness? The flowers themselves were exquisite, a mix of vibrant marigolds, delicate violets, and fragrant lavender, all arranged with care and precision. Each arrangement bore a small card bearing the name of the deceased, accompanied by heartfelt messages scrawled in elegant handwriting. Rest peacefully, one read, your memory lives in. Another simply stated, forgotten, no more return. As days turned into weeks, more graves were decorated, always during the dead of night. Curiosity turned to concern when authorities noticed that only certain graves received attention, those belonging to individuals who had died under suspicious circumstances. A retired detective named Margaret Lane took interest in the phenomenon. Having spent decades solving complex cases, she couldn't resist the allure of unraveling this enigma. She began keeping watch over the cemetery, determined to uncover the truth. Armed with binoculars and a thermos of coffee, she stationed herself near the entrance, observing silently as hours ticked by. On her third night of surveillance, she finally caught sight of the midnight gardener. To her astonishment, it wasn't a ghostly apparition, but a frail, elderly man named Thomas Reed. Dressed in worn gardening gloves and carrying a basket brimming with blooms, he moved methodically from grave to grave, planting flowers with tender care. When questioned, Thomas revealed that he had once worked as a private investigator and spent decades trying to bring justice to forgotten victims. Planting flowers was his way of honoring their memory and ensuring they weren't forgotten. Thomas explained that he had chosen Ashwood Cemetery because it housed many unsolved cases, some dating back centuries. He believed that by tending to these graves, he could offer solace to restless spirits and perhaps even inspire renewed interest in solving their murders. Though skeptics doubted his motives, many villagers came to admire his dedication. To them, Thomas became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in death, no one should be left behind. Story 3, The Silent Witness. The quaint seaside town of Seabrook prided itself on being untouched by crime. Nestled between jagged cliffs and a shimmering ocean, it was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors. Doors were left unlocked, and children played freely in the streets. But all of that changed forever on a foggy spring morning when fisherman Joe Callahan discovered a lifeless body floating near the pier. The victim was identified as Rachel Monroe, a reclusive artist known for her haunting paintings of the ocean. Her death sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community, shattering the illusion of safety that had defined Seabrook for generations. Initial reports suggested foul play, but evidence was scarce. There were no witnesses, no fingerprints, and no obvious motive. Rachel's small cottage sat perched on the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea, its windows perpetually fogged with salt spray. Inside, detectives found little more than canvases stacked against walls, jars of paintbrushes, and scattered sketchbooks filled with cryptic drawings. It was clear that Rachel lived a solitary existence, rarely venturing into town except to buy supplies or mail her artwork to galleries in distant cities. Detective Sarah Klein took charge of the investigation, poring over Rachel's journals and canvassing neighbors for information. What she uncovered painted a complex portrait of a woman consumed by paranoia and obsession. Rachel's final journal entries described hearing whispers carried by the wind, voices urging her to paint what she called the truth. These cryptic writings baffled detectives until someone mentioned an old lighthouse keeper who lived nearby. The lighthouse keeper, a wiry man named Thomas Reed, admitted to befriending Rachel during lonely nights spent watching the sea. He revealed that they often shared conversations about art, philosophy, and the mysteries of the deep. However, he also confessed to overhearing heated arguments between Rachel and an unknown visitor shortly before her death. Though he couldn't identify the person, his testimony provided crucial context. Whoever this mysterious figure was, they seemed to have unsettled Rachel deeply, leaving her visibly shaken after their encounters. As the investigation unfolded, another layer of complexity emerged. Rachel's paintings, once dismissed as abstract expressions of her inner turmoil, began to take on new meaning. In one particularly chilling piece, a shadowy figure stood atop a cliff, gazing down at a body washed ashore below. Another depicted a stormy seascape with ghostly faces emerging from the waves. Some interpreted these works as premonitions, while others saw them as reflections of guilt or fear. Could Rachel have been trying to communicate something through her art, or were these merely manifestations of her troubled mind? Ultimately, the case remained unsolved, leaving behind only unanswered questions. In Rachel's eerie paintings, which some say still whisper secrets to those who dare listen. To this day, visitors to Seabrook speak of feeling watched as they walk along the cliffs, and locals claim to hear faint whispers carried by the wind. Whether these sensations are remnants of Rachel's presence or simply products of the imagination remains unclear. But one thing is certain: the silent witness of the sea continues to guard its secrets, waiting patiently for someone brave enough to decipher them. Story 4. The Clockmaker's Secret. Nestled in the heart of London's bustling streets stood an unassuming clock shop run by Henry Aldridge, a meticulous craftsman renowned for his intricate timepieces. Customers admired not only his skill, but also his eccentric personality. Few knew much about Henry beyond his work, though rumors hinted at a troubled past. Everything changed one rainy afternoon when a fire broke out in the shop, destroying years of painstaking labor. Firefighters arrived swiftly, battling flames that licked hungrily at the wooden beams and glass display cases. Miraculously, no one was injured, but the damage was extensive. As smoke billowed into the sky, onlookers gathered, murmuring about the loss of such a beloved local institution. Among the rubble, however, lay a discovery that would unravel decades of secrets hidden within the walls of Henry's shop. Buried beneath layers of charred debris, firefighters unearthed a locked safe. Its steel exterior bore scorch marks but remained intact, defying the inferno that had consumed everything else. Engineers pried it open cautiously, revealing stacks of yellowed documents detailing financial transactions, coded messages, and sketches of buildings across Europe. Each item told fragments of stories belonging to people long gone. But what truly stunned investigators was the realization that these weren't ordinary records. They belonged to a notorious smuggling ring operating throughout the early 20th century. Somehow, Henry Aldridge had become entangled in their web. Historians pieced together a narrative suggesting that he had used his clocks as clever hiding spots for stolen goods. Each mechanism concealed tiny compartments containing jewels, currency, and other contraband. One particularly ornate grandfather clock housed a false panel behind its pendulum, revealing a hollow space large enough to store gold bars. Another wall-mounted clock contained a secret drawer accessible only by twisting specific gears in sequence. Despite extensive questioning, Henry refused to divulge any details, claiming he acted under duress. According to him, the smugglers had threatened his family if he didn't comply with their demands. Over time, he claimed, he became complicit in their operations, using his expertise to design increasingly sophisticated hiding places. Yet even as he spoke, his voice trembled with regret, hinting at a lifetime burdened by guilt and fear. Henry's silence ensured that the full scope of the operation would remain shrouded in mystery, leaving historians and criminologists alike fascinated by the enigmatic clockmaker. His story serves as a reminder of how ordinary lives can intersect with extraordinary events, often leaving indelible scars. Today, the ruins of Henry's shop stand as a testament to his dual legacy, a master craftsman whose creations transcended mere functionality, concealing both beauty and darkness within their ticking hearts. Story 5. The Phantom Passenger. Train conductor James Miller had driven the same route for 20 years, navigating winding tracks through dense forests and sleepy towns. He prided himself on his punctuality, his ability to greet passengers by name, and his knack for spotting trouble before it arose. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened on a foggy October evening in 1967, a night that would haunt him for the rest of his life. As usual, James made his rounds checking tickets, chatting with passengers, and ensuring everyone settled comfortably for the journey ahead. The train rattled along its familiar path, the rhythmic clatter of wheels against steel lulling some travelers into slumber. It was midway through the trip when James noticed something odd: an empty seat occupied by what appeared to be a translucent figure draped in a long coat. At first glance, he thought it might be a trick of the light or a reflection from the window. But as he approached, the figure turned toward him, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to pierce straight through his soul. Panicked, James alerted the train's security officer, who accompanied him back to the compartment. By then, the figure had vanished. Strangely, none of the other passengers reported seeing anything unusual. Over the following months, similar sightings occurred sporadically, always involving the same spectral passenger. Word spread quickly among railway staff and regular commuters, turning the train ride into both a curiosity and a source of fear. Determined to get answers, railway officials launched an inquiry. After reviewing decades-old archives, they uncovered a chilling coincidence. Exactly 50 years earlier, a young woman named Clara Bennett had boarded the very same train and never reached her destination. Her disappearance had baffled authorities at the time, and while there was no definitive proof linking her to the phantom sightings, many believed she lingered aboard, searching for closure or vengeance. But as investigators dug deeper, they discovered inconsistencies in Clara's story. Though officially listed as missing, records showed that she had purchased a one-way ticket to a remote coastal town where rumors of smuggling operations were rampant. Furthermore, interviews with descendants of Clara's family revealed cryptic details about her involvement with a secretive group known only as the Silent Order. This clandestine organization allegedly dealt in forbidden knowledge and ancient artifacts, operating under the radar of law enforcement. Could Clara have been transporting something valuable when she disappeared? Or had she become a pawn in a larger conspiracy doomed to wander the rails forever? Despite extensive research, the truth remained elusive. What is certain, however, is that the phantom passenger continues to appear. Her presence felt most strongly during storms or on anniversaries of her presumed death. Some say she carries secrets too dangerous to share, while others believe she seeks redemption for sins committed long ago. Whatever the case, those who encounter her are left with an unsettling sense that they've brushed up against forces beyond comprehension. Story 6, The Forgotten Vault. Beneath the bustling streets of Chicago lies a labyrinth of abandoned tunnels and forgotten structures, relics of a bygone era when the city was still finding its footing. Among these hidden treasures is an ancient bank vault discovered accidentally during construction work in 2005. Workers were astonished to find it intact, its massive steel doors sealed shut, despite decades of neglect. Engineers pried it open cautiously, revealing rows of safety deposit boxes untouched for nearly a century. Inside, they unearthed a treasure trove of artifacts, faded photographs, handwritten letters, jewelry, and bundles of cash wrapped in brittle paper. Each item told fragments of stories belonging to people long gone. One box contained love letters exchanged between star-crossed lovers while separated by war. Another held a child's baby teeth alongside a lock of hair tied with ribbon. Yet amidst these personal mementos lay something far darker. A series of detailed blueprints depicting the city's sewer system alongside notes referencing a planned heist. Historians trace the documents to a gang active during Prohibition, infamous for orchestrating daring robberies using underground passageways. Known as the Midnight Syndicate, they specialized in stealing contraband alcohol and laundering money through legitimate businesses. Records showed they disbanded abruptly after failing to execute their grand scheme, a plan to infiltrate a Federal Reserve facility via the sewers. But why leave behind such incriminating evidence? And how did it end up locked away in a forgotten vault? Further investigation revealed that the vault belonged to a defunct bank whose owners had ties to organized crime. Rumors suggested that key members of the Midnight Syndicate used the vault not only to store loot, but also to hide incriminating documents implicating powerful figures within the city's elite circles. When the syndicate disbanded, perhaps fearing exposure or betrayal, they abandoned the vault rather than risk retrieving its contents. Yet the mystery doesn't end there. Among the items recovered was a single photograph showing a group of men standing beside an ornate wooden chest. Their faces were obscured, save for one individual whose features bore a striking resemblance to a prominent politician still active today. Could this chest hold the key to unraveling a conspiracy spanning generations? Or does it contain something even more sinister? Something so dangerous that it must remain buried forever? To this day, the vault remains a tantalizing enigma, preserving echoes of a bygone era. While efforts to identify the individuals in the photograph continue, the true nature of the chest and its contents remains unknown. Some speculate it holds priceless artifacts stolen from museums. Others whisper of cursed objects capable of unleashing chaos upon the world. Whatever lies inside, one thing is clear. The forgotten vault guards its secrets well, waiting patiently for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to unlock its mysteries. Story 7. The Shadow Collector. Residents of the coastal town of Greystone whispered about the Shadow Collector, a figure rumored to roam the cliffs at dusk. According to legend, anyone unlucky enough to encounter him would vanish without a trace. Skeptics dismiss the tale as folklore, a product of overactive imaginations fueled by the eerie beauty of Greystone's jagged coastline. But all doubt was cast aside one fateful evening in 1989 when three teenagers disappeared after venturing too close to the edge. The trio, siblings Emma and Jack Carter, along with their friend Lily Monroe, had gone to the cliffs for a bonfire party, ignoring warnings from locals to stay away after dark. Witnesses reported seeing them laughing and dancing near the precipice, silhouetted against the setting sun. Hours later, search parties scoured the area, but found nothing except a single shoe belonging to Lily. Days later, a fourth youth claimed to have seen a dark silhouette lurking near the site. Terrified, he ran home and refused to speak of it again. Police launched an exhaustive investigation, interviewing locals and reviewing old cases. Patterns began to emerge. All victims shared a connection to a defunct photography studio perched precariously above the cliffs. Known as Silverlight Studios, it had been abandoned decades earlier under mysterious circumstances. Records showed that its owner, Victor Kane, had secretly photographed clients in compromising situations and blackmailed them. When business dried up, Victor allegedly turned to kidnapping wealthy individuals, holding them captive in hidden caves below the cliffs. But as detectives dug deeper, they uncovered something far stranger. Victor wasn't just a criminal mastermind, he was obsessed with light and shadow. His journals, discovered in the crumbling remains of the studio, detailed experiments designed to capture the essence of darkness. He believed shadows held secrets, fragments of souls trapped between worlds, and that by collecting them, he could unlock immortality. One chilling entry described how he used mirrors and camera lenses to trap shadows, storing them in glass jars lined with silver foil. Locals recalled hearing strange noises emanating from the studio late at night, like whispers carried on the wind. Could Victor still be alive, continuing his sinister work? Or had he become part of the very phenomenon he sought to control? Search teams explored the caves beneath the cliffs, discovering makeshift cells where victims were once held. In one chamber, they found rows of dusty jars labeled with names and dates. Some contained faint outlines resembling human figures, writhing silently within their confines. Others were empty, suggesting that whatever force Victor had unleashed may have escaped his grasp. To this day, the cliffside continues to draw curious visitors seeking answers. Some claim to feel cold fingers brushing against their skin or hear disembodied voices calling their names. Others swear they've seen the Shadow Collector himself, a tall, gaunt figure wrapped in tattered robes, his face obscured by a veil of swirling shadows. Whether he is real or merely a figment of collective fear remains unclear. What is certain, however, is that the cliffs of Greystone hold secrets best left undisturbed. Story 8. The Last Broadcast. In the winter of 1994, radio host Daniel Harper hosted a late-night program called Voices in the Dark. Known for his soothing voice and penchant for discussing unsolved mysteries, Daniel attracted loyal listeners eager for spine-tingling tales. Each episode delved into topics ranging from haunted houses to cryptids, blending fact with fiction in a way that kept audiences both entertained and unsettled. But one snowy evening, his show took a sinister turn, one that would leave listeners questioning the boundaries between reality and the supernatural. Midway through a segment about urban legends, static interrupted the transmission. When sound returned moments later, Daniel sounded panicked, speaking rapidly about shadowy figures approaching the studio. "They're here," he whispered hoarsely, his usual calm demeanor replaced by sheer terror. "I can see them. They're right outside the door." Listeners called the station frantically, but operators couldn't reach Daniel. Security footage showed him sitting calmly at his desk until suddenly slumping forward, microphone dangling silently. Emergency responders arrived to find the room empty, save for faint smudges resembling handprints on the walls. No sign of forced entry or exit suggested how Daniel, or whatever confronted him, had left. The incident sparked widespread speculation. Some theorized Daniel staged the event as a publicity stunt. Others believed he encountered something beyond human comprehension. Regardless, Voices in the Dark ceased broadcasting permanently. Years later, snippets of that final episode resurfaced online, reigniting interest in the case. Audio analysts detected strange anomalies in the recording, faint whispers layered beneath Daniel's voice, rhythmic tapping that matched no known instrument, and what sounded like distant footsteps echoing in the background. As curiosity grew, amateur sleuths began piecing together clues hidden within Daniel's broadcasts. They noticed recurring themes, references to specific locations, dates, and names woven subtly into his monologues. One listener identified coordinates embedded in a seemingly innocuous story about a ghost ship. These led to an abandoned lighthouse on the outskirts of town, its interior covered in cryptic symbols etched into the walls. Among the graffiti was a phrase repeated multiple times: "The airwaves carry more than sound." Further investigation revealed that Daniel had been researching paranormal phenomena for years, documenting cases involving electronic voice phenomena, EVP, and other unexplained occurrences. Friends described him as deeply fascinated, yet increasingly paranoid, convinced that some forces could manipulate technology to communicate across dimensions. Could his final broadcast have inadvertently opened a portal, allowing entities from another realm to enter our world? Today, the studio where Voices in the Dark aired stands vacant, its windows boarded up and its halls eerily silent. Those brave enough to venture inside report hearing faint echoes of Daniel's voice drifting through empty corridors, recounting stories that never made it to air. Others claim to pick up distorted transmissions on old radios tuned to frequencies long abandoned. Whether these are remnants of Daniel's legacy or signs of something far darker remains unknown. One thing is certain: the last broadcast of Voices in the Dark continues to resonate, reminding us that some mysteries are better left unsolved. Story 9. The Whispering Woods. Deep within the rolling hills of northern England lies a dense forest known as Blackthorn Grove. Locals avoid it after sunset, claiming that the woods come alive with whispers, soft murmurs carried on the wind that seem to call out to wanderers. Some say the voices belong to those who have vanished within its shadowy depths. Others believe they are echoes of an ancient curse placed upon the land centuries ago. The legend gained traction in 1923 when a group of university students ventured into the grove to investigate reports of strange lights flickering among the trees. Armed with notebooks and cameras, they set up camp near an old stone circle rumored to be a meeting place for druids. That night, their journals recorded chilling accounts of disembodied voices urging them to follow the path. By morning, 3 of the students were gone, leaving behind only cryptic notes scrawled in shaky handwriting. "They know we're here." Search parties combed the woods for weeks, but found no trace of the missing students. The sole survivor, a young woman named Margaret Lane, was discovered wandering aimlessly along the edge of the forest, her face pale and expression vacant. She refused to speak about what happened, except to warn others never to enter the grove again. Her silence fueled speculation about what or who had taken her companions. Decades later, a team of paranormal investigators revisited Blackthorn Grove, equipped with modern technology designed to detect anomalies. Their equipment picked up unusual electromagnetic fluctuations and audio recordings filled with faint whispers repeating phrases like, "Come closer," and "You shouldn't be here." One investigator claimed to see shadowy figures darting between the trees, though his colleagues saw nothing. When reviewing the footage later, they noticed something unsettling: a figure standing just behind the camera operator, partially obscured by foliage, watching silently. To this day, Blackthorn Grove remains shrouded in mystery. Locals continue to report hearing whispers if they venture too close, and some swear they've seen ghostly lights dancing among the trees. Whether these phenomena are remnants of a forgotten past or signs of something far older and more malevolent is anyone's guess. What is certain is that the woods hold secrets best left undisturbed, whispering softly to those brave enough to listen. Story 10. The Forgotten Lighthouse. Perched on a rocky outcrop at the edge of the world, the lighthouse at Devil's Cove has stood sentinel for over a century. Once a beacon guiding sailors safely through treacherous waters, it now sits abandoned, its lantern dark and its walls crumbling with age. But despite its desolation, the lighthouse refuses to fade from memory, not because of its history, but because of the strange occurrences that plague those who dare approach it. Built in 1887, the lighthouse was manned by a solitary keeper named Elias Grayson, a reclusive man who rarely interacted with the outside world. For decades, he maintained the light faithfully, ensuring ships navigated safely past the jagged reefs below. Then, one stormy night in 1924, the light went out. A rescue crew dispatched to investigate found the lighthouse deserted, with no sign of Elias. His logbook lay open on the desk, its final entry dated the previous evening. The shadows move when I'm not looking. Rumors swirled about Elias's fate. Some said he had succumbed to madness, driven insane by isolation and the relentless howling of the wind. Others whispered of supernatural forces lurking in the cove, preying on anyone foolish enough to stay too long. Over time, the lighthouse fell into disrepair, becoming little more than a local legend told to frighten children. In 2005, a documentary crew decided to explore the ruins, hoping to capture evidence of paranormal activity. Equipped with cameras, microphones, and EMF detectors, they spent several nights inside the decaying structure. On their second night, things took a sinister turn. One member reported seeing a figure standing at the top of the spiral staircase, silhouetted against the moonlight streaming through broken windows. Another claimed to hear footsteps pacing above them, even though no one else was upstairs. Their most disturbing discovery came during playback of the footage. In one clip, taken near midnight, a shadowy form can be seen moving across the wall, a humanoid shape with elongated limbs and an unnaturally wide head. Stranger still, the audio captured faint whispers repeating Elias's final words. The shadows move. The crew fled the lighthouse shortly afterward, refusing to return. Today, Devil's Cove remains a haunting reminder of humanity's fragile grip on understanding. The lighthouse stands as both a monument to tragedy and a gateway to the unknown, its forgotten halls echoing with the whispers of those who dared to delve too deeply into its mysteries. Story 11. The Drowned Bride. On the shores of Lake Elderglow, nestled between mist-shrouded mountains, lies a small chapel abandoned for nearly 2 centuries. Its crumbling walls and shattered stained glass windows tell the story of a love lost to time, and perhaps something darker. Locals speak in hushed tones of the drowned bride, a spectral figure said to haunt the lake, her flowing white gown perpetually soaked and her eyes filled with sorrow. The tale begins in 1792 when a wealthy merchant named Thomas Alden arranged a marriage between his daughter, Eleanor, and a nobleman from a neighboring province. Though Eleanor loved another, a humble blacksmith named William, she obeyed her father's wishes, believing duty outweighed desire. On the eve of her wedding, she visited the chapel to pray for guidance. Witnesses claimed to see her walking toward the lake shortly afterward, clutching a bouquet of wilted flowers. She was never seen again. Search parties dragged the lake for days but found no body. Instead, they uncovered a series of letters hidden beneath the chapel floorboards. Written by Eleanor, they revealed her anguish at being forced into marriage and hinted at a pact made with the lake itself. "If my heart cannot belong to him," she wrote, "then let it belong to none." Years passed and stories of the drowned bride spread. Fishermen reported seeing a pale figure gliding across the water, her hair trailing behind her like seaweed. Boats passing too close to the center of the lake would inexplicably capsize, leaving survivors shaken and unwilling to speak of what they saw. Some claimed the bride sought revenge for her stolen happiness. Others believed she guarded a secret buried deep beneath the waves. In 1980, divers exploring the lake discovered a wooden chest encrusted with algae and barnacles. Inside, they found jewelry, letters, and a locket containing portraits of Eleanor and William. Among the items was a journal written by Thomas Alden, detailing his guilt over forcing the union and his belief that the lake had claimed Eleanor as punishment. Since then, sightings of the drowned bride have grown less frequent, though locals insist she still watches over the waters, waiting for someone to reunite her with the man she loved. Story 12, The Clockmaker's Apprentice. In the heart of Prague, where cobblestone streets wind through medieval spires, there once lived a clockmaker named Victor Novak. Renowned for his intricate automatons and masterful craftsmanship, Victor took great pride in mentoring young apprentices eager to learn the art of horology. Among them was a quiet boy named Lucas, whose skills surpassed even Victor's expectations, but whose curiosity often led him down dangerous paths. Lucas spent countless hours tinkering with gears and springs, creating devices that seemed almost magical in their precision. Yet he harbored a fascination with forbidden knowledge, spending nights poring over ancient texts about alchemy, astrology, and the manipulation of time itself. One evening, while exploring the attic of Victor's workshop, Lucas stumbled upon a dusty tome bound in cracked leather. Its pages contained diagrams of a device unlike anything he'd ever seen, a clock capable of bending reality. Driven by ambition, Lucas began constructing the clock in secret, working late into the night. He scavenged parts from discarded projects and melted down precious metals to forge components imbued with mystical properties. As the clock neared completion, strange occurrences plagued the workshop. Tools moved without explanation, shadows danced across walls, and the air grew heavy with an unshakable sense of foreboding. When Victor finally discovered Lucas's creation, he was horrified. "You meddle with forces beyond comprehension," he warned, ordering the boy to destroy the clock immediately. But Lucas refused, insisting that he could control it. In a fit of defiance, he activated the mechanism and vanished without a trace. The workshop was sealed off after the incident, deemed cursed by superstitious townsfolk. Decades later, historians examining Victor's estate uncovered fragments of Lucas's notes, detailing his experiments and speculating about alternate dimensions. Some theorize that the clock opened a rift, pulling Lucas into a realm outside normal time and space. Others believe he became trapped within the device itself, doomed to tick away eternity as part of his own invention. To this day, rumors persist that the clock still exists, hidden somewhere in Prague, waiting for another soul daring enough to unlock its secrets. Those who seek it are advised to tread carefully, for time, once disturbed. Story 13, The Silent Library. In the heart of New Orleans' French Quarter stands an unassuming building known simply as the Silent Library. From the outside, it appears ordinary, a weathered brick facade adorned with ivy and a wrought iron gate. Inside, however, lies a labyrinthine collection of books rumored to contain truths so profound they drive readers mad. Few dare to enter, and fewer still emerge unchanged. The library first appeared in the early 1900s, seemingly overnight. No records exist of its construction, nor does anyone claim responsibility for its existence. It operates without staff, opening its doors precisely at midnight and closing at dawn. Visitors describe an oppressive silence within its walls, broken only by the occasional rustle of pages turning themselves. The shelves stretch endlessly, curving upward into darkness, and the titles change depending on who gazes upon them. One visitor, a scholar named Dr. Amelia Hart, entered seeking answers about a series of unsolved murders plaguing the city. She emerged hours later, visibly shaken and clutching a single book titled Voices Beneath the Veil. Within days, she disappeared, leaving behind only a note. Some questions should remain unanswered. Over the years, similar accounts surfaced. A journalist investigating corruption vanished after borrowing a volume called The Weight of Shadows. A grieving mother searching for solace returned home catatonic, clutching a manuscript inscribed with her deceased child's name. Each disappearance added to the library's ominous reputation, yet curiosity continued to lure seekers into its depths. In 2010, a group of researchers attempted to map the library's layout using GPS trackers and thermal imaging. They entered confidently, armed with cameras and notebooks, determined to uncover its secrets. Hours later, only one member emerged, babbling incoherently about whispers in the dark and books that watch you. The rest of the team was never found. Their equipment recovered months later, scattered throughout the quarter, devoid of data. Today, the Silent Library remains a fixture of urban legend, drawing those desperate for knowledge or redemption. Whether it is a repository of forbidden wisdom or a gateway to something far more sinister is unknown. What is clear is that its shelves hold more than ink and paper. They house fragments of the human soul, waiting patiently for someone willing to pay the price of enlightenment. And so another chapter comes to an end. Thank you for joining us on this quiet voyage through mystery and wonder. We hope that tonight's story has helped calm your thoughts and slow the pace of your day, guiding you closer to peaceful dreams. See you tomorrow. Until then, sweet dreams.